Hi, welcome back. So you hopefully have regrouped yourselves into your new creative type groups. This should be pretty interesting. Um, I am curious to see what happens and how you function with these new groups. I honestly have no idea what's going to happen, so I am pretty excited right now. Um, So we have a whole series of tasks that are all centered around our kind of theme or concept for the afternoon, and that is to persevere in the face of adversity. 2019, this summer has been a pretty interesting year for me, and I think really for kind of the world at large. I want to provide a little historical reference for this to think about why the summer of 2019 is so important. And we're going to arrive where we are within the summer of 2019 by going back to the past. So let's go back. Make sure that's closed. So let's go back to a historical moment in time. That is October 4th, 1957. For these of you a certain generation, you might feel like you're dialing up, trying to access America Online. But it was on October 4th, 1957, that the Soviet Union launched Sputnik, thus beginning the space race. As you see, in America, we thought that we were the leaders in the world, that we did absolutely everything the best. And then suddenly, the Soviets beat us at our own game. As I've kind of read a lot about this historical period and talked with a lot of people that were in schools and in education at that time, they always sort of frame it in this way. We freaked out. We freaked out as an educational system because suddenly we were no longer the leaders within the world. And particularly within gifted education, I have heard all of these stories from teachers that were then kids that talked about, yeah, one day I was just sitting in my regular math class, and then the next thing I knew, like my principal was running down the hallway, starting up gifted programs or starting up advanced content programs because we really felt like that we had to do something that was new and different. That was in 1957. A few years later, then President John F. Kennedy gave this famous commencement address.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Not because they are easy, but because they are hard. We want to do the hard things. We want to persevere through all of this adversity. That was in September of 1962. And now we all know what famously happened that summer of 1969. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. And it's pretty astonishing to think about how NASA was able to accomplish what seems like it should be an impossible feat. That is, of course, unless you don't believe that, and then that's a whole different conversation. But for me, the summer of 19 really has been the summer of the moon. Like I've watched all the moon documentaries, all the special news reports, watching, just Walter Cronkite just, in disbelief as he announced that the Eagle had landed. Looking at all of the new film footage and photographs and just training manuals that NASA has released has been a little overwhelming. This past week, when I was in Boise, Idaho, at EduFest, which is an annual teacher conference that I go to, one of the keynote speakers was Brian Floka. Brian is also has an awesome first name that spells it in the correct manner. But Brian, He is an award-winning author-illustrator. He won the Caldecott Medal for his book Locomotive. And 10 years ago, he wrote and illustrated this book called Moonshot, which is about the landing of the Apollo 11. 10 years after that, he got the chance to go back and expand and revise that in honor of Apollo's 50th anniversary. It's an absolutely astonishingly beautiful book that is told in just this loving way. So if you want to share a good picture book that's all based in science with your students, his books are really, really phenomenal. During their time in Idaho, we also got to, a group of us traveled out to the national park known as Craters of the Moon. This is this amazing, huge national park that is essentially a series of volcanoes that have dumped massive amounts of cinder and lava all over hundreds of thousands of acres. This is a cinder cone that we got to climb up together. It literally looks like the surface of a moon. So this is all volcanic ash that has been hardened, and then we got to climb up that. Those kind of white sort of looking dots up here, those are people, and so this was kind of from the base of the cinder cone, looking up. These are just my touristy photos. That's not any real content at this point. So I'm glad that you're interested. So as I thought about how could we come together to kind of experience some of the things that are really cool about the moon, also talking about this idea of perseverance through adversity, overcoming challenge, then what I thought that we would do this afternoon, rather than having you sit and listen to me for the next 90 minutes, is that we would be involved in some collaborative groups. That's why you form these teams, these collaborative teams based upon your creative type. Because I'm really curious to see what happens when we get a group of dreamers together to see if they're able to accomplish something. I say that as a dreamer. It's challenge accepted. Bring it. And so we're going to have a series of 6 different tasks that we're going to rotate through. You're only going to have 15 minutes for each one, so we're going to move like really pretty quickly. Some of them are much more involved and will take far longer than 15 minutes. We want you to get as far as you can within the 15 minutes. The perfectionists in the group right now are starting to get a little ruffled of like, what do you mean there's only 15 minutes? I need 45 in order to make this perfect. So let me explain what the 6 things are going to be. And we'll kind of rotate through. Actually, do you want to rotate from table to table? Or would you prefer to stay in your place? I'm sensing that everyone wants to stay. You will stay. You will stay in your place. That'll be a little bit easier than trying to move all of your stuff around. Stop number 1 is related to the history of the moon, particularly related to the history of moon landings. What I have done here is to create a Google presentation that your team is going to be working on. Your team, when you are at that station or at that stop, will use this bit.ly link to produce a single slide. There are 6 groups. There have been 6 missions, 6 Apollo missions, which have landed on the moon. So that was incredibly convenient, the way that worked out. So you're going to choose one of the missions, whichever one it is that your group decides to choose. You're going to choose one that a previous group has not already done. And on that blank slide, you're then going to put any information that you think is relevant and important. You might put a picture of the crew, where the capsule landed, major accomplishments, milestones, those types of things. At the end of this, I'm going to show you how to take a presentation and turn it into an interactive museum kiosk. So that's the bit.ly link that you're going to use for that. Stop number 2 on our moon centers is all related to moon tourism. You are going to imagine that it is your job as an advertising agency to create a tourism campaign for the moon. You might design some type of poster. We have chart paper in the room, so you could create one of those. You could create a PowerPoint slide or a set of slides, whatever it is that your group chooses to do. As a part of that, you really want to tell the world what it is that they would be able to do and see when they go and visit the moon. What types of activities or restaurants or things that they might do while visiting the moon. Item number 3, I'm actually going to have you go outside onto the porch to complete this. I'm calling this Moon Systems. You're going to imagine that you are on the moon and the ventilation system has broken down in your moon base. Your task with your group and the amount of time that you have is to reassemble the air ventilation system. You will have a series of PVC pipes and connectors. Your task is to complete a completely closed circuit system so that there is no entry or exit. Every pipe will go into a hole. Every hole will be filled. You will try and create this complete structure that will allow your crew to continue breathing while on the moon. So it's a nice little physical challenge. Stop number 4 is all related to moon education. Your group's task is to start a school on the moon. What does your curriculum look like? What are the things that children of the moon will need to learn that are different than what the children of Earth have to learn? Again, just like with the tourism piece, however it is that you want to design that or create that. We have chart paper. You can design something that's on paper or something that is a digital project. Stop number 6. No, stop number 5. Stop number 5 is about the future of the moon. This is about the future of the moon that is part of what our reality is. Things that will take place within the next 5 years. Because right now, not a whole lot of people really recognize that NASA is planning within the next 5 years to send people back to the moon. Not just to visit for like a day or two, but to build a permanent moon base where people will live and work there, and to use that moon base then as a launching point to go on to Mars. You can use your time there to explore some of the NASA website, which is at nasa.gov/moon to Mars. So you've got time to go through, look at the materials, look at what their plan is, and talk about whether this is realistic. Do you think that we're going to be able to accomplish this in the next 5 years? Stop number 6. It's all about moon survival. Here you're going to imagine that you are trapped on the moon. You're landing on a base on the surface of the moon in a spacecraft, but your group's craft malfunctions, crashing to the moon. You are a 3-day walk from the base. As a group, you'll have to decide which items from the craft are essential, possibly helpful, or useless. I'm encouraging you to be creative with those items. So you'll take them, classify them into these 3 categories. These are your 15 items that you will have to work with. I will give you a link at that center that gives you the same information in a Google slide format that you can organize. You could do that with paper and pencil if you want. Whichever way it is that you want to do that, that is entirely up to you. In the few minutes that we have left, I want to try and provide a little bit of closure for us about some things that I think that are maybe some important take-home messages. You know, you are part of what I consider to be an incredibly special group. As I think back into like my own career as a teacher, as a classroom teacher, as a teacher of the gifted, this was precisely the type of group and type of program that I always longed for, but yet never had access to. So in a lot of ways, I am incredibly envious of you that you're teaching and that you have this opportunity to come together with such an amazing group of educators. I've had just a fantastic time being able to spend the past couple of days with you, and am so in awe of what it is that you are going to go and do within your classrooms. So I want to thank you for being dedicated to this profession and dedicated to your craft, because I believe that you are all truly artists. We think about a lot of times the vampires that exist within our school environments, the people that are out there that really want to suck us dry. You're going to go back to your schools and your buildings, and you're going to be on fire with all of these things that you want to do. And then you're going to walk into that teacher's lounge or into that vampire's den, and you're going to hear people say this, but that's impossible. And you have to know that what you want to accomplish, what you want to do, is possible. Because in the words of Nelson Mandela, it always seems impossible until it is done. And you have that power, you have that capacity to go and do those mighty things. You have that capacity to remember what it's like to be a kid and to ask all of those what if questions and why and how come we have to do it that way. You know, I'm always reminded sort of Alice in Wonderland when I think about sort of the possibilities of what exists within our own lives, and oftentimes how kids forget the power of their own imagination. In Alice's Adventure in Wonderland, Alice says, "I can't believe that," to the Red Queen. "Can't you?" the Queen says in a pitying tone. "Try again. Draw in a long breath and shut your eyes." Alice laughed. "There's no use in trying," she said. "One can't believe impossible things." The Red Queen says, "I dare say you haven't had much practice. When I was your age, I always did it for half an hour a day. Why, sometimes I believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast." We have to remember what it's like to believe those 6 impossible things before we get to school, before we get to our classrooms. If we want to do things differently, if we want to change the world, if we want to empower our students to make a difference, we have to do the impossible. But in order to attain the impossible, we must also attempt the absurd. People will say, again, that you are crazy, but it is really the crazy ones that have made a difference in this world. In the words of Uncle Walt, he said that it was kind of fun to do the impossible. As you go back to your classrooms, I want you to think about doing those impossible things, daring mighty things as you move forward. And I also think that it's really important for you not only to do those mighty things within your classroom, but to share your story with the world. It's important that you share your story. When Barbara was introducing me on Tuesday, which was yesterday, right? Seems like so long ago. I'm like, we've been here like a week. She mentioned that I was part of the NASA social media team. So this past year, in November, I had the opportunity, or I was selected to be a part of this group. This is an open call that NASA has for all of their missions, where they're calling for and looking for artists, influencers, educators, storytellers, creators, and people with curious minds. So for each mission, then there are probably a couple thousand people that apply. And for each mission, they usually select about 30 or 40 people. I applied. I thought I would not be selected. I did not believe in myself. I was having some imposter moments. But then I was selected, and I got to go to the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena to see and be there in the room when InSight entered descended and landed on Mars. This is our group. It was probably 30 of the most random people that I had ever met. There were musicians. There were like I'm gonna just call them YouTube celebrities because they have like 500,000 followers. There was this guy, Matt Inman. He creates a cartoon called The Oatmeal. He also co-created the Exploding Kittens card game. I like fanboyed like all over him. So like this is me. I'm like, hey, can I be in the picture with you? Um, but everybody else did as well, and it was just so cool because there were these amazing people that some of us knew and other people didn't know, and we were all coming together just because of our passion and love for all things space. When we were there, then we were kind of like, wow, how do we get to be chosen? And this is a crazy group of folks. And what do we do with this knowledge and information that we've gathered through this experience? And time again, they said, your challenge, what we want more than anything for you to do is to go and share your story, to share your experience of what it is that we learned there. And as I thought about that and thought about how it connects with different things that we've talked about here over the course of the past few days, I really think that it connects in so many ways with this passion, perseverance, and purpose. And so I want to just touch on one of the things that I learned as a part of this. As I looked at what is the one factor more than any other personality factor that it takes in order to get to Mars, I came down to that factor of perseverance or of task commitment. We talked about that yesterday in looking at how like Renzulli's definition really ties into what it means to be a gifted person or to exhibit gifted behaviors. And more than anyone else that I met as part of this program that exhibited this perseverance, it was the principal investigator of the entire Insight project, and that's Bruce Bannert. Bruce had this crazy idea back when he was in grad school. He said, I wonder what's happening on the interior of Mars. Like, do they have the same type of seismic activity? Do they have earthquakes on Mars? Do we call them Marsquakes? What would that term actually be? And so he wrote a paper when he was in his 20s, when he was in grad school. And he took that same idea of what would it be like to measure the seismic activity on Mars, and he worked on that for 40 years. That one idea that he was incredibly passionate about. It was his whole purpose in life. And he took that one mission, which all resulted in Insight, landing on Mars, putting a seismograph on the surface of another planet. When we think about what success looks like from a kid's perspective, or even from our adult perspective, we often think that it looks like this. You start doing something and you immediately are successful. You come down to that one final thing that you're learning about. Success is so much more complicated than that. There are stops, detours, different directions that we have to go in, and we're constantly looking for that new piece of information. We have to persevere in order to be successful. Now, this mission not only took 40 years, but it also took the team 7 years. The team together working collaborative 7 years working on this single project in order to accomplish it. They then had to wait 7 months for the Insight craft to go from Earth to Mars. And then that one purpose that they all had in common came down to the final 7 minutes of if they could land that craft successfully through the Mars atmosphere. For many of us, for many of our kids and our students, we're living in this immediate gratification society. We want everything right now. We are like Veruca Salt, and if we don't get it in the next 5 seconds, then we are really, really upset. But as we learn from the tortoise and the hare, slow and steady will win the race. And just proving that you can find absolutely anything on the internet, we're going to watch an actual tortoise race an actual hare just to see what happens. So you're going to go forward. You're going to leave here. You're going to be like the rabbit. You're going to be like the hare. You're going to be out of the gate, ready to start the school year. Don't stop short of your goal. You have to cross the finish line. You need to be the tortoise. You don't have to be the fastest one, but you need to finish. Remember that SMART is not about being quick and easy, but it's about really celebrating the effort that you put forth in this. I've mentioned this book, I think, a couple of times, but I have one final quote from it. This is Creativity Incorporated, written by Ed Catmull, Overcoming the Unseen Forces That Stand in the Way of True Inspiration. Ed Catmull did something that was impossible. He and John Lasseter co-founded Pixar Animation. When they decided to create a full-length animated motion picture called Toy Story, people thought they were crazy. They thought that they were pitching an absurd idea. They thought, who will go and watch such a film, and why would anyone ever do that? People told Walt Disney exactly the same thing when he pitched the idea for Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I think we can see where it is that we've come in 2019 as we think about some of the most popular, the most successful motion pictures of all time are either animated or computer animated and come from this corporation. In Creativity Incorporated, Catmull says that creative people discover and realize their visions over time and through dedicated, protracted struggle. It's about finding the things that you are passionate about. It is about finding your purpose. It's about saying yes to the things that you really want to say yes to. And it's about persevering through all of the hard times. Near the end of the first day that I was there at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, I had a chance to kind of have a one-on-one sort of sidebar conversation with Bruce Bannert. And I asked him a couple of questions. And the first question that I asked, I told him I was an educator. And I asked him what it was like for him when he was growing up, when he was in school. And he said, well, you do know that nerd is part of my name. So you can imagine how that went. And I was like, yeah, I identify myself as a geek, and yeah, I totally know how that was. And as we were kind of talking, I said, Bruce, you're about to do what is impossible. You're about to achieve your life's dream. A lot of people asked you how that felt. What I'm really wondering in this moment is, if you could go back in time and you could give your middle school self some advice, what would you tell yourself? He's like, huh. He said, no one has asked me that. I said, that's a really great question. I think that I would tell myself to just keep doing what you're doing because it will work out eventually. That was 50, 60 years of keep doing what he was doing in order to accomplish that. After InSight landed successfully on Mars, there was a big press conference where all of the social media team, all of the world media that was there, and all of the NASA scientists and engineers gathered in this very large room. And just before Bruce went on stage with some of the other lead inspectors, I was sort of sitting right near the edge of the stage, where the ramp was to go up. And Stephanie, the lead person from NASA JPL that was in charge of our team, she was like, Bruce, you did it. You accomplished this amazing feat. How do you feel? Like, what are you going to do? And he was kind of like one of those, what are you going to do next? You just landed on the moon or landed on Mars. Are you going to Disney World? He's like, yeah, it's a pretty great feeling, but I know that now the real work begins. I just worked on this for 40 years, but my job actually starts tomorrow. That's a lot, really, to deal with. You've started an amazing journey here as part of the Teaching Fellows Institute, and I think that in the time that we've spent together, that it's been incredibly joyous for me, but I think that now your real work begins. So go forth, do amazing things, because you change the world every single day.